I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Susquehanna Township Board of Commissioners. This is our workshop meeting, October 28, 2001. I will note that all commissioners are here with the exception of Commissioner Rabarchak, who is excused. We did meet in executive session to discuss matters of personnel. We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence, and we would ask that the pledge be led tonight by Commissioner Johnson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're welcome. Welcome, everybody. We'll begin tonight with a moment of silence. Let's move on to that, from that, with public comment, which could be a moment of silence as well. Does anybody wish to address the board tonight?
Moment of silence.
Another moment of silence. All right, we'll begin tonight with a presentation, two presentations actually. We're graced to have Dr. Tamara Willis with us. We'll get to her in just a minute. Going to go over some things with the school on behalf of the school district, and we would also like to hear from Dan Fuller, Rotary Club officer, and I'd like to come up and join you for tonight's presentation, which is an annual event.
See you.
Good to see you. Members of the board, a couple weeks ago, I was invited to talk to the Rotary in Susquehanna Township. Susquehanna Township Rotary is an outstanding group. They're small but mighty, and they have so much potential. Every year about this time, they come before us. They ask if they can present their Rotary Officer of the Year Award, and that's why Mr. Fuller is here tonight. Linda Spots, who's the current president of the Rotary, could not be with us tonight, but she sends her best wishes. But I just wanted to, it was such a positive experience interacting with the Rotary. I've attended a couple of their meetings in the past. I think you've been active for about 8 years or so.
About 14.
14. Double that. Moment of silence, please. That I wanted to give them a shout out. It's tremendous that they honor our officers, because what our officers do day in and day out cannot be, you can't thank them enough. And we truly do appreciate what the men and women in blue do for us and making us the township we are. But the Rotary, just a group of volunteers, they help the school district, and I know Dr. Willis can speak to that, and they help the township in small but measurable ways. They took part in the Tour de Belt. First time we ever had a tent in the Tour de Belt was this year. Rotary Club members helped staff that along with our great recreation staff. So I just wanted to take this opportunity before introducing Public Safety Director Rob Martin to publicly thank the Rotary and encourage commissioners, staff, members of the community, business leaders, and community leaders to get involved with Rotary. They need our help. They're small, they struggle, but their heart's in the right place, and they do great things for this township. And it'd be awesome if we can get some more cooperation and some more vigorous support of what they do, because it really is appreciated. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Martin, who will introduce Dan Fuller.
First, I want to thank Mr. Fuller and the Rotary Club for over these years, not only instituting the Officer of the Year program through their organization, but year after year recognizing one of our officers. And Corporal Leanne Tarasi, come on up here. And I just want to speak a little bit on Corporal Tarasi. 14-year veteran. She's currently a supervisor, a corporal in our criminal investigation division. And from a case assignment perspective, Corporal Tarasi handles what I would defined as the toughest, some of the toughest, but usually the most despicable types of cases that we have relating to the abuse of children and those types of offenses that I won't even get into. But the work that she does day in and day out for all of the citizens of this township, I know it goes by quietly, but she works tirelessly for victims. And I'm just going to give you an example. We had an incident yesterday where a mother with 2 children came here from the Philippines through some internet-related situation, ended up being kicked out of the home that was promised to her in our township, and we were struggling to find a shelter. We actually, the township, put her and her children up overnight at one of our motels to make sure they were safe, and it was Corporal Tarasi working through her contacts that she has made through her relationships to find them a shelter today, early this morning. And that's the kind of work that Corporal Tarasi does, because she was doing that work not on duty. She was doing that, off duty for the sake of that mother and those 2 children. But there's more about Corporal Tarasi. She was decorated last year for negotiating the surrender of an armed barricaded suspect on North 6th Street. She's been a longtime crisis negotiator on the Dauphin County Crisis Response Team. And only in the past week, as the commander of that team, I was pleased to promote her to the negotiations team leader. So she's now going to lead that unit, and she makes us proud every day, and not only in Susquehanna Township, but throughout the county. And last but not least, if you follow Augie on his Facebook page, the Corp is the voice of Augie. She is essentially the voice, but she within the police department, she is defined as Augie's mom, and I'm defined as Augie's dad, because which is okay. I think we take those titles, and we're very proud of them, aren't we, Corp? So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fuller.
Thank you very much. And thank you for that introduction. I think one of the hardest awards we have to do is introducing the folks in the police department, just because all of the work that you do, it's just nice to have somebody who can read off that long list, and it's not an embarrassment. A number of years ago, we started this during we talked in the parking lot of the school during the fair, one of the carnival days, and thought of an idea. We recognize students and teachers all year, and in the summer we have a lull. And at the time when we were still getting breakfast pizzas over at Giant, we had to come up with some filler, and this was a no-brainer. So we've been able to recognize a long list of very well-deserving folks, and you are now a proud member of that club, and I'd like to present you with an award for the Rotary Club Susquehanna Township Police Officer of the Year. Thank you very much. Perfect.
There is 4.
Thank you.
Say some things? I know you will.
Come on, Augie.
I am speechless. Can we have a moment of silence for that? No, I guess not. I'm humbled. I mean, I know this recommendation comes from the both of you, but I am supported by the township commissioners. I mean, I can honestly say I waited to work for this department. I'm humbled, and I am very thankful. And touched. I am. So I thank you. I thank you all. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah, got me.
Told you to take a moment of silence.
I did not know you were Augie, the voice of Augie. That's awesome. It's out now. Okay, I mentioned earlier that we had Dr. Willis in the house. And whenever you're ready.
I'm
Tamara,
ready
we
now. Dan is
appreciate an
bothering me.
update.
I'm sorry. All right, so I'm a photographer, but I'm also a member of the Rotary Club in Susquehanna Township. So I'm very proud to say that. So in true teacher fashion, I have to set up my props. I just want to put these forms here. I'm going to leave these here. You'll know why during the presentation. And we'll come back tomorrow and collect them if any of you choose to participate in after hearing tonight's presentation. So good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm not going to take it off. I'm going to be, right, I know what we're supposed to do. So whoever's controlling the presentation, if you could put it in presentation mode, or not presentation mode, but slideshow, or is this like a PDF?
It only came through as a PDF.
Don't worry about it, we'll make it work. All right. So this evening, and I'm sorry, can you see?
I can, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. And
All right,
we also
so-
have copies, Dr. Willis, we also.
You have copies?
We have copies as well, yep.
Have to make sure everyone has an opportunity to see this evening. So as you all may know, our district has spent over a year talking about and listening to folks as it relates to the district mascot and what it means to the township. And I have to be honest with you, when the petition was brought up, I think it was last August, I looked at everyone and I said, crap, I'm the superintendent that not only got COVID, but now I'm dealing with a mascot? Are you kidding me? Like, you couldn't wait for someone else, but it's okay. I guess they just figured the time was right. So we have engaged in this conversation since last August, and actually it was a conversation that was brought to me when I first arrived at the district as assistant superintendent. But again, the timing wasn't necessarily right. So we did, in fact, our school board decided that they were going to retire the Indian logo and mascot and all imagery related to it. And so one of the things that we did after the decision was made was we agreed to find out why the Indian logo was so important to us and so many people in the district, but then honor that tradition by moving us to something that would bring us all together as a community. So, because this is a very hot topic, honestly. It's very controversial. So, of course, I'm pleased to be doing this. Yeah. All right. Okay, so why are we getting a new mascot? I just explained that. Actually, if you go to the next slide, we did have the conversation. We did have a subcommittee. And in June of this year is when our board decided to retire everything. After that, a subcommittee was formed. The subcommittee was formed to actually research the township and research the school district. And the subcommittee was made primarily up of alumni, which I was grateful for because I really did not want this message coming from me. Because I feel like folks that have a stake in this mascot, they really are the ones that should really dig in deep and do the work. So this presentation is one that I am giving everywhere. I've already presented to everyone at the middle school, so all of our middle school learners have heard it. All of the staff have heard it. I'm almost finished with the high school. I've already provided it at one of our board meetings, and now I'm coming to provide it to you all because I want to make sure that as we do this, we make this move, everyone has had an opportunity to weigh in on the process and, of course, the outcome. So this is the main reason why we are getting a new mascot. These are our students. Nope, you can go back. You can stay there. Yep, there you go. These are actual students from the district. Some of you may recognize Micah C2 under his mask. He wasn't our valedictorian, but he was our class president from the class of 2021. And so one of our 6 core values says that our diversity is our strength. We are not a school district or an organization that simply creates core values just to say that we've done the work. We actually live them. And I am constantly reminding our staff about who we say we are and whether or not we are reflecting who we say that we are. So these are our students. You can go to the next one. And of course, this was the old mascot. And we believe that a reflection of a race of people really did not live up to that core value. In fact, some of the folks, and I will talk about the fact that we talked to a number of people over the course of that year, but I am primarily reminded of two students who came to our board meeting, one of our board meetings. One was from Derry Township and one was from Lower Dauphin. And yes, we had listened to a number of adults from indigenous groups, but the two students who came to speak, and one was actually a graduate, so they weren't a current student, they were a graduate from our district. They talked about how this imagery affects them as a young person, and how they would overhear some of the comments that were being made about Native Americans in their own schools and within their circles, because a lot of people they didn't recognize that they were Native American. They would call them Mexican, or they would say that they're, Latino, and in fact, they were Native American. And so some of them, after hearing some of those comments, did not divulge that they were actually Native American. That's a sad story for a young person to prefer to deny their identity. So the young people really impacted me personally the most. And so we also learned in some of our discussion with some of the community members who belong to Native American groups that some of the imagery here, some of the symbols were actually offensive. I won't get into what some of them represent. But again, we did not know, and this was not erected to be offensive, but I think once we know better, we should do better. You can go to the next slide, please. So we felt before we delve into a conversation about who we should become as a district, we wanted to really go back and identify where the origins of the Indian imagery began. And it may be difficult for you to see on the screen, but if you have a handout, the subcommittee decided to go back and just take a look. We looked at research that exists in books. We looked at digital research. We also used artifacts from the district itself, and that really helped inform the path going forward. So on the screen, what you see is an image of a 1936 yearbook, and beside it, you see a 1935 article that mentions the word Susquehanna and the word Indian, okay? We show you the 1936 yearbook because that is the first time the picture of a Native American person appears in the district's history in terms of yearbooks or any kind of publication. But I want to go back even before the 1936 yearbook. You can go to the next slide. So the term Susquehanna, I don't know, and I'm probably not saying it correctly, but Justin, I'm going to call you out because you were a graduate, right? Do you have any idea what that, where you've seen that word?
I mean, it was associated with the yearbook, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
In all of the presentations that I've had, none of the students were able to figure that out. None of them recognized it, but the adults did, so you passed. Thank you. All right, so the term, it's actually used for the district yearbook. And it is loosely interpreted, and I'm going to say loosely, as Muddy River. This is a yearbook in 1933. Prior to 1933, the yearbook in 1930, which is on the left, was called the Rippler. Everything that we were associated with really led back to the river. We did not find evidence of the people, but we found a lot of evidence of the river. So you're going to go to the next one? If you go back to that one, I'm sorry, yes. The other thing I wanted to point out is that we were not able to find any formal adoption of Indians as a mascot. The earliest that we were able to discover the presence of an Indian was that hand-drawn picture in 1936 that just appeared on a yearbook, and it just kind of stuck. So we wanted to make sure that, because we were trying to find the origins, because this is this topic is very near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, so we wanted to find out how did it all start. All right, you want to go to the next one? So we did find a lot of points of pride about the township, and we did some research, and if you have time, I'm not going to go through all of this, but we went all the way back to the earliest settlement in and around 1720 at Fort Hunter, right? And I'm looking at the seal tonight, and I see January 1952 established as a township, and that's what we found as well. The township was established as a first-class township to prevent the city of Harrisburg from further annexation of land without a referendum. So this township was unique early on, right? We established ourselves as something separate, right? We established ourselves as a place that is special and different. And I think that is something that we should really be proud of. You can go ahead. Every time I ask a parent why they moved to Susquehanna Township, why they want their learners to attend our schools, the number one answer is diversity. The number one answer. It's not even close when you think about other answers. It is almost always diversity. So we wanted to find out how deeply rooted that diversity was. You may have trouble seeing this, but the top picture on the left, my left, is a picture of the graduating class of 1925. There is an African-American graduate named Bob Hodges. And for those of you who have been in the township long enough, there was in Edgemont a place called Hodges Heights. And Bob actually owned property and donated that property to the township for the building of Hodges Heights. 1925, he graduated from the district. 1930, our basketball team, it's hard to see that picture. It's diverse. 1947, the National Honor Society, it is a diverse picture. And of course, the 1930 Junior High Sewing Club, everyone laughed when I said that in the schools. Very diverse group. Go to the next one. On the far left, you see a page out of the 1939 yearbook. That is the graduating class of 1939, all the way through to 2018. And even today, we were a diverse township. We were a diverse district. We did not just become diverse. You go on to the next one. So that's a huge point of pride for us, right? When we were doing the research, I said, my goodness, this is pretty awesome. I mean, I like the place, but I love it now, right? All right, so this is another, yes,
I just want to.
jump in.
I just want to personally object to using the class of '99, my wife's class, and my class of '98, so.
You're going to get in trouble. You know this is being recorded.
1 year earlier, you would have gotten a better product.
If he comes up missing, you'll know what happened, all right? One of the other things that we found in digging through all of the archives, this is actually a page from the minutes, the board minutes from 1936. I feel sorry for the recording secretary at that time. That is a lot. But I actually took those pictures and put it on the slide because I wanted to make sure everyone saw it. In 1936, the School Board of Directors approved the delegation of colored women to use the Glenwood Building in Edgemont to provide education for African-American adults in the evening. All right, so the students were already in the schools, but they also wanted to make sure the adults were educated. This township, 1936. Here's why this is so important and amazing. So the township was committed to education for all. So if you go to the next one, and I promise you it's almost over. All right.
That's great.
There's a picture from the class of 1930, all right? Why is this important? Why are these dates important? They're important because of a 1954 landmark case called the Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. That landmark case required that African-American students be given an opportunity to learn beside white students in this country. More than 20 years before it was mandated at the federal level, Susquehanna Township recognized that everyone deserved an education. Everyone. Clearly it didn't matter the color of your skin. Our graduating class says we were committed to being a community, everyone belonged. I'm not saying that the township didn't have its issues, sure it did. But for us to be on record as providing education for everyone, that's a pretty big deal. And I think it's something that this township should be proud of. I know I'm proud of it. You can go to the next
Where
one.
was the Glenwood building located?
In Edgemont, yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be the kindergarten.
Yep.
Up at the,
Okay, very good.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We also had a series of firsts in this district. The picture at the very top, right-hand side, well, left-hand side on my left, is a picture of Anna Carter. You may remember Anna Carter, Sarah Linda Muth, Anna Carter Primary School. Anna Carter was, yeah.
I met her.
You did?
Yeah.
Are you telling us your age? No, I'm just kidding. No.
I'm 39.
That's awesome, though. That is really great. I wish.
Her portrait, last I checked, is still in the building.
Oh, absolutely. It absolutely is. Yes, right in the main office. And remember, there was a building even before it merged with the Sarah Lindemuth building that was just the kindergarten center, and that was Anna Carter, right? So again, paying homage really to the folks in this township from all backgrounds. I thought that was just amazing. So we have a couple of, this is just a quick version. We have pages and pages of notable graduates from the district, but one in particular, Stephen Fred, or I can't remember, see the name. What is that?
oh, Steve Freed.
Fried, thank you, fashionista. He hates the term now, but he's credited with inventing it. And then there was also a gentleman who had a key role in the first face transplant. Didn't know we were doing those things, but apparently we are. You can go to the next one. All right, so this is where you all come in, and anyone in this room is welcome to chime in, and we want feedback from everyone. We've said that no, you don't have to select anything that we're presenting tonight, right? You could just say, we're going to wait and see what happens, right? You don't have to, or you can actually recommend something on your own. But these were the things that, some themes that we saw that we wanted to put out in the atmosphere, and we'll let the community and, of course, our students decide what we actually become. So you can go to the first one. The first one we thought about was a lion's pride. So it would be a lion. And by the way, I didn't come up with these, so I wish I were this smart. Anyway, because when you think about a lion, it's a family. They're together. Once you belong to the pride, you belong to the pride, right? Unless there's something, dramatic that happens. The other thing is we already yell Hannah Pride everywhere. It's what we yell. The other thing is all of our students move through the district from kindergarten to grade 12 together.
Dr. Willis?
Yes.
Can I comment on that since you said that?
Please.
My daughter's a freshman at DSU, and she said to me, she said, Mom, she said, you know what? She said, because I've always had all my same friends.
Yep.
She said, now I'm at school, I don't know how to make friends.
Well,
However, but the best part of the story is, of course, her best friends are 2 high school students that were already here. So it's like she's still with Susquehanna Township high school
Yes.
students.
you are one of us, right?
Yeah.
You are. So that was the one idea. All right, we'll go to the next one. The other one that was recommended was Education for All, which would be an owl. So for years, I did not know why Thomas Holtzman had the owls as its unofficial mascot for the building until I realized that they used to be called Herbert Hoover. Okay? Someone thought of that. So anyway, but we also believe that the owl represents scholarship and wisdom, and this district clearly has a history of educating everyone. Again, major point of pride, but also Education for All was another theme that emerged. Okay, you can go to the next one. Someone said, why can't we just be called the township? I said, okay, we'll add it to the mix, meaning we just come up with our own logo. It doesn't have to be any kind of an animal or anything like that. It could just be a symbol. We put that out there as well. That's another one. You can go to the next one. This one was a little more interesting because the district was really ahead of its time. A couple of folks mentioned, innovators. What if we became the innovators because we were clearly doing things before even the country at large was doing some of these things. And so they said there could be a lightning bulb, a light bulb, a lightning bolt. We don't have a mascot for this one. The idea was there. We put it out there. All right. And then on to the next one. This is the last one, of course, because you have to consider just being a fictitious character, right? every time I think about a fictitious character, I think of the Philly Fanatic, all right? It wasn't until we started doing this research that I ran across the Heat, which I don't know what that is. So I apologize to any Heat fans in here. That is strange to me. And then also the Syracuse Orange Men. I learned that Syracuse Orange Men were actually adopted because they used to have an Indian mascot. They had a Native American logo. Did not know that. All I've ever known was the Syracuse Orange Men.
Yeah.
Didn't know, so that's really that's why they did it.
St.
So,
John's did the same thing.
Did
St.
they really?
John's, They were the Red Men.
Redmond.
oh,
And then they became the Red Storm.
huh.
Yeah.
So we put that up there. Again, we've told everyone that we've given this presentation to, we're not wedded to any of these. These are just some themes that we saw that emerged from the research, and we figured we'd put it out in front of everyone. All right. So this is where you all here, or at home if you're listening, have an opportunity to weigh in. I do have some pink sheets, not pink slips. I stopped saying that after the first presentation. I have some pink sheets up here, and they list all of the themes that we presented, but there's also there are blank lines on there. So you can write in anything that you thought that kind of emerged from the research. And if you know tonight, great. If you don't, that's fine as well. If you go to the next slide, I'll share with you how we are taking feedback. So you can use one of the slips. I'm going to leave this box here. You can also drop it off at district office if you want. There's also a Hannah hotline. So if you want to just go to the website and send us it can be anonymous. You can leave your name. Just tell us what you think we should be doing and who we should become.
So,
Yeah.
Dr. Willis,
Yeah.
I appreciate you being here tonight. I actually, when you presented to the school board,
Oh,
I happened to read
yes.
the board docs and pick up the presentation. I know it's been edited since then. I do agree that the iconography can be problematic. But what if we can thread this needle? Okay?
Yes.
What if, so one of the ideas I had after reading the presentation initially was tribe.
Yes.
But we steer clear of some of the iconography. We come up with a new logo, as it were. But something based around that. That was my idea. And we could.
That's actually been one of the ideas that's gotten quite a bit of write-in support. So yeah, we're counting, we're kind of tallying all of them.
And the students are getting a say as well.
Oh my gosh, yes, yes. So to your point, that's what you'll tell us. If you want to write it down or if you want to submit it, we're tallying them all. The list is getting longer. We have a little bit of everything, but there are some clear winners in the group. But we still have more presentations to do, so we'll see how it turns out. So the last slide, please. And this is our process. So between now and December, I am taking my show on the road, and we're going to compile all of the input that we have, and we're actually going to produce a list of the top 5. And we're going to ask folks to vote on the top 5. Once we find out the one that most people want to see, even if it is tribe, yes, then we're going to ask our students to design it. So we're going to have an art contest, and we're going to have our students design to provide a rendering of what the new mascot would look like, and then we'll have another vote, right? So you'll pick from a series of pieces of art, and I'll bring those back to you to see as well. And then, once we select it, then we're going to be reaching out to a marketing company to actually give us a professional rendering of the students' art. So we're not finished yet. So hopefully we will have something to unveil by May of 2022, and so that we can have a formal launch when we return to school in August. Any questions? The last slide is questions. Any questions? Questions, and of course, thank you.
Do we just get one choice?
No, actually. We've told everyone who's heard the presentation, you can put down as many as you want, and we are counting them all. So some folks put tribe and maybe Red Hawks, because that's also a write-in. So it's going to be whatever you put on that card, it gets a vote.
Thank you for asking that question.
Yes.
I just thought of another one.
And we are not changing the colors. The colors will not be changed. The colors will remain the same, red and white. I am not going down that road.
A lot of uniforms.
This is enough, yeah. All right, if there are any other questions?
Dr. Wilson,
Yes,
I have, first of all, let me say, thank you for your presentation.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here. I mean, I think there's not a single commissioner here, or not here, who doesn't agree that we are blessed to have a great superintendent. We
Thank you.
appreciate you personally.
thank you.
This issue, for me,
Yes,
is one that I think maybe too much time has been spent on. And I know it's not one that you decided to adopt, your
No.
reluctance has been pretty clear and understandable.
7 years in the making.
Right. But I really think that the school board spent a lot of energy and a lot of time, and maybe too much, in my opinion. But anyway, it all started because somebody was offended, or at least somebody perceived that others were offended. And then, of course, Penn Live did enough research to digging to find people that were actually offended.
It grew, yeah.
Right. But, one thing that I wanted to ask you about, and this is off
Yes.
topic, and I apologize, but we don't get the superintendent of the school district
That's
in front of
okay.
us every day. So I'm going to rush to another issue that,
Yes.
while it may be perceived as unrelated, I think it's related because it's something that happened that I found embarrassing.
Yes.
Offensive.
Yes.
And that was a fight at the high school football game a few weeks ago.
Oh, yes. I found that offensive as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
we have the best police force in the state, as far as I'm
Yes.
concerned. I just don't say that because the chief is in the room.
Yes.
I feel that way, and I have felt that way since I've got to know this police
Yeah.
force. And what they had to endure
Yes.
during that fight was clearly offensive.
Yep.
Was undeniably offensive. We can argue about whether this is offensive or it's,
Sure.
not offensive, or somebody was offended or somebody wasn't offended. But what happened that night was so offensive. And I guess I'm just going to ask you, I mean, what are we doing to perhaps reduce or prevent or, prevent something like that from happening? Were the students, did they get any kind of, I don't want to say,
Consequence?
yeah, well, I don't just mean the students that were involved directly.
Right.
But I think it's important that the students who may have been aware of it, or the students who, it just, that they become aware how offensive it was.
Yes.
And I
yes.
think that's important,
Yes, it is.
because it's something that, we can go back in history and we can debate
Yeah.
the offensiveness of the image of an Indian.
Yes.
Or a Native American person, excuse me.
Yep.
But I don't think you can, from what I heard about the way our police officers were treated on that evening, I don't think there's any question that there was offensiveness, offensive behavior. And I'd love to know what the school district is doing to maybe educate kids
Sure.
on that kind of a situation.
So I would say that it is an equally delicate conversation, especially coming out of the last 19 months or so with everyone at home and really just watching the news and the national conversation around.
See, I would understand that,
Yeah.
except I think we have a police department that's totally different than what we're seeing in the nationwide picture.
Well, I would say perception is reality. And so just like this, we have to continue to have the conversations with people, not don't ever do that again, it's terrible, but we did some of that. But I think there needs to be an understanding around the work that police officers do, how they are a part of the community, right? When you see an officer, you should see that individual as a part of the township that you live in, not necessarily as the enemy. And that is going to take a lot of conversations, not just with students, but with parents.
Right.
And with
understand parents
community
were involved
leaders.
with
Yeah,
the-
it has to be a conversation where everyone's in the room and they are talking about their various realities and then coming together to see the other side. I think a lot of what's happening is individual groups have their perspectives and they're sticking with it. And no one's really listening to the other side. So there really has to be some conversation about what the reality and experiences are of those students and their families and their communities, but also the reality of our law enforcement. And I think if we all retreat to our respective corners, nothing happens. This requires deep conversation about the reality that we're all living. So it's going to take time, but I agree with you.
Commissioner.
It was it was
the-
unacceptable.
The behavior of our
Yes.
officers was stellar at that event. because
And
they
I
did
called
not-
Chief Martin the next day. Was it the next day? You did. I did. I called him. I said, your officers were amazing.
Yes.
Because I witnessed what was going on, and I saw how they responded. It was nothing short of stellar. I agree with you.
Commissioner Pine, apart from the larger environment
Yes.
that Dr. Willis addressed, I was there that night. I witnessed it. I saw exactly what
Yep.
happened.
Yep.
The law enforcement response was fantastic.
Yes, it was.
In the aftermath, I heard about, some of the treatment of our officers, and it was abhorrent. I will say that the district immediately took steps to, and we have not had an incident like that since.
No, we shut it all down.
Right, because they, instituted things like, this incident involved middle school students, so no more middle schoolers could come unaccompanied.
No.
In fact, they limited attendance the week after, and then gradually ramped back up, but no non-high school student
That is
could
correct.
attend a football game unaccompanied.
Yep.
So they did put steps in place to mitigate what happened, not have an incident repeat itself, and so far, I think the proof is in the fact that we
It
had
is. Yeah, we haven't had any more
enjoyable,
incidents.
environments since then.
Yeah, and
I
that is true.
appreciate that there was
Yeah, we
that
did that.
response. I was not aware, so thank
Yes.
you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, they sent multiple emails out
Yeah.
about, new procedures for going forward, like immediately. So they, recognizing the gravity of the situation, yes, they took those steps.
Yep.
And it's still, I believe, in place. If you're
In
high
fact,
school
some
students-
other districts have adopted what we've done.
Yeah.
I've spoken to their superintendents. They said, oh, we're going to do that. So no unaccompanied minors, because that tends to be where the issues are.
And that incident specifically was deep. I mean,
Oh.
we heard about a disagreement from parents, later that week.
Yeah, that included
it was-
children
yeah,
and-
it was-
yeah.
It was a mess.
But I would say that was a symptom. What we dealt with and what the officers dealt with, I believe, was a symptom. So we have definitely addressed the symptom, but we have not addressed the problem because it's much larger. And it's going to take more time. And it's going to take more than just a district to have that conversation. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions? Comments, anything?
Thank you for all your
Yeah,
good work.
thank you.
I'll come back in case you have other questions. How about that?
Yeah.
Tricky seas to navigate, but I'm really glad you put in the time and you're the right person to do it.
Well, thank
Thank you.
Appreciate you. I'll leave that here and I'll come back and get it tomorrow.
please.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay,
Dr.
thank you,
Willis.
Doctor.
I'd suggest, throw Rotarians on there as a suggestion.
There you go.
Oh, and I forgot to say,
For a small
Not yet.
fee,
Tarasi
Rotarians can be.
yeah, Tarasi earned, she deserved it.
What about the Lions?
Yeah.
It's amazing. What's that?
He said Rotarians, what about Lions?
Well, they're already on the list.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
And this is also available for corporate sponsorship, should someone decide to step forward. So, thanks,
Yeah.
Dr. Willis.
Chick-fil-A.
Have a good evening. Thank you for coming.
I plead with Jesus. Yeah.
All right, next up on the agenda is Police Department. Couple of items. Chief?
No. Oh, maybe. Since Fred's not here.
Yes. Mr. President, we do have a vacancy in the police department, and we have a signed list from the Civil Service Commission that I am recommending be certified tonight and made active.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion that we certify the new civil service hiring list.
Second.
Seconded. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
My second request is to make a conditional offer of employment to Mr. Jeremy Wayant. The conditions will be all required MOPEC requirements, as well as all requirements under the township handbook.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we make a conditional offer of employment for Patrol Officer Jeremy Wyatt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
All right.
I'm going to walk Jeremy out. I'll be back.
Thank you very much.
What?
Good night. Next item is ASPE side letter agreement regarding employee premium contribution.
Mr. President,
Yes.
this is a side letter agreement between ASME, who represents certain employees in the Public Works Department, among others, and the township. The township and ASME have come to a cooperative agreement as memorialized in the side agreement that normalizes what the Public Works employees are doing with the authority employees, and it is for giving them an amount of $1,200 per employee, bringing both sides of the ASME house in equilibrium. It is something that the township is doing in recognition for the good work of the Public Works Department, and because the township, through the administration and the manager, have endeavored, and the Board of Commissioners have endeavored, to try and treat all employees equally. And so, even though the parties came to this agreement, this amount of money is being refunded to those employees for their contributions to healthcare, because we think it's in the best interest of, the administration thinks it's in the best interest of the township to try and find that kind of equilibrium and same treatment. So we're recommending the approval of this side letter agreement for reimbursement of those sums for 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is authorize the sale of the 2018 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor. Bratzer?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, as noted on the agenda, we have a 2018 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor that you had previously authorized for sale via municipal bid for award this evening. The high bid is in the amount of $14,750. We would recommend approval or acceptance of that high bid.
So moved.
Second.
And seconded. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the Susquehanna Township Uniform Pension Plan. Authorize the advertisement of a notice of intent to adopt an ordinance to implement a deferred retirement option program.
Mr. President, this is a promise that we made in 2003 that we're getting around to, brought down from the attic and addressing. And thanks to the chief and the work of the chief and the administration, we have a drop program which allows officers to retire at a time certain, helps us work on replacing them appropriately, and it's a benefit to the plan. And so we're asking to advertise notice to intent to adopt that ordinance, and we'll be doing a 205 study out of the pension plan and be bringing it back to you for approval later. This has been agreed to by the Police Association, and again, I'd recognize both the manager and the chief for moving this matter forward. It's a bit overdue, but we got to it.
All right, is there a motion on the authorization to advertise a notice of intent to adopt?
I move that we authorize the advertisement.
Second.
Second, and that would be at our next meeting, right? November 18th?
It should be, yes.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, motion carries. All right. COVID-19 vaccination program. Pratchett?
Mr. President, I'm going to tag in on this, come over the top rope, so to speak. That's a euphemism. There are two items here. One of them is informational, one of them is for action. The matter for action is to consider a revision to the township handbook to require COVID-19 vaccination for all new hires to the township effective upon adoption of that amendment to the handbook. We've talked as a board, and we've talked as an administration about the necessity to take a new view of COVID. We've worked very hard as a group to mitigate the effects of COVID, and we think it's appropriate as we sit here today to make clear to everyone who chooses to work for Susquehanna that they must be fully vaccinated against COVID or have a legitimate accommodation approved by the township. And so that's what that says, and I'm hoping for a favorable action from the board to adopt that.
So moved.
Mr. President, can I make a motion?
There is a motion on the floor, and what did you move?
To adopt it.
It's already done.
Yeah. All right.
A second on the other.
I second it then.
Second it. So just to be clear, we're talking about the employee handbook.
Correct.
And this only applies to employees coming on board after a date certain, and that date certain is what?
Today. Yes, Mr. President.
Any comments or questions?
I do. I wish I had asked sooner. So my question about the new hire handbook, do we have a procedure in place that when someone's coming on board, how do we know that they're going to be vaccinated? So when someone comes on board, they have to show their...
So Commissioner Johnson, somebody would have to demonstrate that they are vaccinated by showing their vaccine card, or they could ask for an accommodation, and they'd have to demonstrate proof that they needed the appropriate accommodation, either for religious reasons or medical reasons. And we'd engage in an interactive process. But it is legal for us, and we will ask to see your vaccination card. And if you don't have one, if someone intends to get vaccinated and we push their start date back by the appropriate amount of time, that's a possibility as well. We're going to work with people because obviously we want them to work for us, and we're going to give them every accommodation required by law. But at the end of the day, we're looking for proof of vaccination.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Could I follow up with a question about that just as well? The wording here I noticed indicates sincerely held religious belief.
Yes, sir.
How do we determine that it's sincerely held?
Oh, thank you. The law. Do you have 15 minutes? Or longer? Never ask a question you don't know the answer to. They keep teaching us that in law school. Look, the test for a religious exemption is both a religious standard and sincerely held religious belief, which is less than a religious doctrine. The problem is that that is a doctrine which is, shall we say, developing with this as it's applied to this disease. It means different things for different people. For instance, the Catholic Diocese of Allentown just had a case up there, sent a letter saying that the COVID vaccine was, to take it was not a violation of any of the ecumenical rules of that diocese, and so on and so forth. So I guess what I would say, Commissioner Pine, is it depends strongly on the person's religious vocation, the sincerity of that belief, the length that they've practiced that belief, and how that belief, if at all, applies to their ability to take the COVID vaccine, right? So, for instance, We've seen cases where someone says, well, look, I'm spiritual, I don't really go to church, I don't practice any particular religion, but I spiritually and as a matter of conscience am against COVID-19 vaccine. That doesn't actually meet the test. That's not a strongly held religious belief, it is a personal conviction, which is fine, but it doesn't necessarily meet the test. What I'm afraid to say is that, as with the religious exemption requires a good bit of back and forth between the person and the township to make sure that you're asking the right questions and getting the right facts. What I can promise you is, if this comes up, the township will not dismiss anybody's religious convictions or their beliefs, but will analyze it consistent with the law as it develops. We'll apply those facts to the law as we see it, and then we'll go from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
I knew that my discussion of the religious exemption was gripping. I just didn't know it was that gripping. Look, the point is that it's nothing to be, it's something to take very seriously. We will. But it's not something that's easy to define because of a mix of facts and law that come with it. Does that make sense, sir?
I appreciate that. I think it establishes for us legislative intent.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed?
Mr. President, the second issue is an informational
Motion carries.
one. As a part of the adoption of this and working cooperatively with the Police Association, the chief and the manager have been able to develop a general agreement on principle that once the board adopts a side agreement, that there will be mandatory weekly testing for those individuals who are not vaccinated. The dimensions of that, where the test happens and how often and so on and so forth, will be worked out over the next few weeks. I think that some recognition needs to be provided to the chief, the manager, and the police association for being willing to have a cooperative conversation about this issue. Look, at the end of the day, as the president pointed out to me, this is not a punitive issue. This is an issue about keeping people as safe as possible, especially people who are so forward-facing to our community on a daily basis. We've had a very good record of being safe, but as this disease progresses and hopefully ends, but we need to do what we can to take additional steps to keep people safe, and this seems to be an agreeable medium step. It may not be where we end, but it's certainly an important first step. So we will be bringing back to you an appropriate agreement that addresses a lot of the questions that the board has brought up. They've been great questions, great points, and we're going to bring that back to you. And again, I'm thankful that we've been able to have an open conversation with some of our employees about doing this. So thank you, Mr. President.
Absolutely. Thank you. So that will be revisited in a couple weeks.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Next item is consider authorizing Susquehanna Union Green Phase 1 Financial Security Release Number 10 in the amount of $494,455. Rubik?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. As the president indicated, there was a request from Susquehanna Union Green for financial security release number 10. They are very diligent in their almost monthly submissions of requests for financial security, as the board is aware. The components of the request for reduction include one of the underground detention and infiltration systems, sidewalk, curb ramps, and some other miscellaneous items totaling $494,455. Of course, including the 10% contingency, which we normally add in order as a retainage to secure the township's interest. So I would recommend its adoption, the reduction to that amount. The new amount to which the financial security would be reduced to would be $1,556,133 remaining.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I just have a question. This is my perennial question on these. Are you confident that I look at all that's undone on Progress Avenue, and I understand there's a highway occupancy permit delay there. But are you confident that there's enough security there to ensure that work gets done?
Yes, but that's actually under a separate agreement, Commissioner. So what you're seeing here is internal to the site.
Oh, okay. I thought that was part of Phase 1 also.
That it's part of phase one is the internal infrastructure. That's what we're dealing with here.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And you can see there has been progress made, the sidewalk especially.
Absolutely, oh, yeah.
And I have asked the developer for an update in terms of the scheduling for the design and completion of the entrance feature at the intersection of Progress and Linglestown. So we're waiting for that. I'm anxious to see that and anxious to have the developer share it with the board.
And I also kind of scratch my head about that green area and how that's going to slope it.
That's why I'm anxious to get it also.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. ARPA fund request, Volunteer Fire Company's Water Rescue PPE. Reese?
You want me to, yeah, go.
Good morning, Commissioners, or evening, Commissioners, sorry about that.
It's still evening.
It's still daylight, kind of somewhere. Yeah, respectfully request to tap into the ARPA funds for personal protective equipment for both rescue and Progress Fire Companies. Currently, the state of their water rescue gear is they swap it out. So if you're in a dry suit and you have to switch out for calls, there's not enough money in their budget, in the fire tax budget. So they've been getting by. This gives them an opportunity to have stuff that's issued to them, providing they meet the recommendations and the professional qualifications for the actions that they're taking. And they don't have to share it. It's with COVID, our guys and girls have been doing an absolutely stellar job of staying safe, dealing with the public at no cost to us, to the taxpayers. And they're leaving their, when they get home, they go to calls. Some of them still get to leave their jobs and go to calls, and this gives us an opportunity to make them safer in their jobs. So that's what we're asking for. It's relatively untapped money. I'm probably going to said that wrong, but I think it's an opportunity to give back to our volunteer firefighters and rescue personnel. And this goes for all, both Progress and rescue fire companies.
So if I can just kind of follow up on a few things. So the request, total amount of the request is $54,792, based on the document that has been submitted. The request was reviewed at the recent Township Budget and Finance Committee meeting. It was reviewed favorably at that setting, so we're bringing it forth to the full board for its consideration. We'll be working with ZA to see if the expense is an eligible direct expense of those ARPA monies. Again, as Chief Dries has noted, the current practice of having to share suits, obviously, in the nature of this equipment is not conducive to avoiding potential exposures and those kinds of things relative to COVID. In the event that it's deemed to not be an eligible direct expense, As we've talked about before, the township does have, ZA had performed a revenue loss calculation for 2020, in which those funds are essentially recoverable for general government use and general government purposes. So there is money still remaining in that revenue loss calculation in the event that we're not able to establish that this is an eligible direct expense. So either way, we believe that this expense, either coming out of the revenue loss portion that was already done, or an eligible direct expense, would be fundable through the ARPA receipts that we had received. So be happy to answer any questions that commissioners may have on that issue.
Move to approve the funds request.
Second.
Seconded. So this is just I guess a motion, or it's not, it'll be incorporated in the budget, I assume, right?
Well, the funds are on hand, so we're asking essentially for you to authorize the purchase.
Yeah, this is a
savings.
disbursement.
Yep.
From those funds.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Traffic study requests, do we have any?
I do. Thanks, Dave, for reminding me. Chief, I know you're familiar with the gentleman who called me on Bow Street. He had called some time ago, and I guess you'll put stop signs out there. Let's see. So if you're, let me try to get the correct. It's off of her, and I guess when you go over towards State Street is that Parkway. So- Right, and then when you get to the, right.
Right.
So when you get to that stop sign, to the left, I guess it's Bow Street up that way. The guy's initial complaint was that when people were leaving the car wash, and they would come through a cut through, on Bow Street. So anyway, I think you did go out there and you talked to him, and I believe you set up some stop signs or something out there, but he called me yesterday, asking, is it possible to get speed bumps? And I told him that would require a traffic study, but I would pass the information off to you.
Okay. I think we did a study, but I will double check.
I think his name was Mr. Shepherd. That name's familiar to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he had talked to you.
Yeah, the issue with Boas is it's a narrow street, there's parking on both sides, which, the parking on both sides actually is a traffic calming
Oh,
device.
okay.
Because it narrows the lane and should slow people down, but certainly not everybody, because some people are not. But we'll, Mr. Shepherd, we'll reach out to him and see what we can do.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Anybody else? Traffic studies? Hearing none.
Motion to adjourn?
Go to commissioner comments.
Oh,
Anybody
I'm
have
sorry.
comments? Hearing none.
Second?
Motion by Anderson. Prize.
Oh, I didn't see the back.
Second by Pine. Any comments or questions on that motion to adjourn?
I don't think it's debatable.
In that case, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. We're out of here. Thanks, everybody.